Hi, welcome back to the Rich Fritsky Show. It's always a joy to have some of you good folks out there who care to take the time out to be with me. It means a lot. Thank you. My mind is all over the place today, for we Americans can't help but shake our heads. For we are 4% of the world's population. 4%. And yet as of 3 days ago, we were 32% of the world's COVID-19 cases, and we are 28% of its deaths. And yet our president continues to brag about the great job he has done, and to absurdly, ludicrously, from time to time, blame it all on Obama. He has turned obfuscation, distraction, and distortion into an art form, and given the applesauce that is his brain. Just last Thursday, he mind-numbingly said, if we didn't do so much testing, we would have very few cases. There is ignorance, there is mind-numbing ignorance, and there is the President of the United States of America. But that is not my topic. I'm going to a better place. To my dad, who we lost 29 years ago, and to my brother Bob, who we lost 12 years ago. And that which connected one's service in World War II to the lives of Bob and we brothers of his in the 1950s. According to all who knew him before the war, Francis Fritsky, born in 1917, was at the age of 24 as gentle and kind and soft-spoken a human being as imaginable. He married my sweet mother, Rosie, on July 25, 1942, and he then reported for duty into the United States Army just 3 days later. My mom would see him just one more time in some motel near Fort Meade in Maryland, as he was given a 2-day pass. And there my older sister Joan came into being. She would be 2.5 years old before he first saw her. Having spent all of those years as a frontline medic, where the madness and appalling horror of war and sudden fire and fury twisted and tore the bodies of young men apart, forever maiming if not killing, ever in the inferno of it all. And yet somehow remarkably, all of my dad's letters, all of those letters that he managed to send to my mom, which were discovered only after we lost her as well, remained beautiful, simple, and pure love letters. There was nary a mention of the suffering that engulfed or the madness that daily dehumanized. He was among the very first American troops to be deployed to the European theater of the war. He landed in Northern Africa sometime between November 8 and November 16, 1942, as part of what was called Operation Torch, where they would be in battle for 7 straight months, pushing General Rommel and the Germans off of the African continent. It was then followed by the agony of 2 successive invasions, the first onto the island of Sicily on July 9, 1943, and then onto the Italian mainland in September of 43. My dad was there at Anzio, where Allied casualties were estimated at 27,500. And he was there at Monte Cassino, where some 20,000 were either killed or wounded. Just surviving to that point had been a damn miracle. But here's the rub. That which went unnoticed, he was already dying inside. And it was still a year before D-Day. Of course, I do not know just how many of these casualties were my dad's, who first triaged, determining who among the butchered could be saved. Just how many did he patch up, get to the surgeons and save, or watch breathe their last? I am certain only of the fact that there were always too many to count. And it would go on and on and on in France and Belgium and Germany until that wonderful day, September 5th, 1945, when Germany finally waved their white flag. For him, for my dad, it had been nearly 3 years of nonstop service on the front. To shine a brief light upon that which makes it more maddening still, in his work, A Question of Leadership, the Fifth Army in Italy, John McNeill insists that General Mark Clark was more interested in winning accolades than in being smart or protecting his men, that the Allied command were regrettably preoccupied with the Pacific, the build-up in England, and the preparations for what would be D-Day. They gave Clark free rein, and McNeill insists that it cost the lives of untold thousands. He maintained that the entire command was an undermanned and underfunded afterthought, and that Clark's superiors were thousands of miles away, absorbed in other interests, leaving his blunders to go unpunished. McNeill wrote, "I don't think it is an exaggeration to say that the Battle of Cassino was fought out in some of the worst weather and terrain conditions that confronted any troops anywhere else in either of the two world wars. German troops who had previously served on the Russian front were later quoted as saying that they would have crawled back to Russia on their hands and knees just to get away from Cassino. My dad and those he fought with were climbing mountains in freezing rain and snow, repeatedly confronting sophisticated German fortifications devoid of any such protections or machinery for themselves. Confronted with impregnable lines, McNeill asserts that Clark would simply throw troops at it and have them mowed down by the tens of thousands. Overall, listen to this number, there were more than 320,000 Allied casualties in Italy alone. How many of them, I wonder, were my dad's? He never said. In fact, he wouldn't speak of the war at all, nor would he join the American Legion nor the veterans of foreign wars. To him, no matter the needs and the musts of the war itself, there had been no glory or honor in it, so there would be no boast or brag in him. No putting the uniform back on or marching in parades. He was Wilfred Owen's Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori kind of guy. You will not say with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory the old lie, it is sweet and becoming to die for one's country. He celebrated only those in his corps who survived in his own New Jersey and Illinois and Wisconsin and New Hampshire. Anything celebrating the war itself he disdained. And no matter how often we asked, he would never answer. This kind and gentle man who had been rendered hard and isolate by war, he had been broken over there. And no one took notice back then but his family. My mom, who somehow knew and trusted the man who was buried within him, hung tight with him no matter. And she covered our flanks when his anger and the fury raging within him was aimed at us. She was fierce for us, and still and ever and gratefully a warrior for him, back when PTSD was neither recognized nor treated. Only once did my father break and speak of the war. That was on the night that my brother Frank returned from Vietnam, when his guard was completely down. He said just 2 lines. He said, "You asked me what I did. I pumped morphine into the bodies of dying men. I listened to their last words, and when the blood finally stopped flowing in battle, I wrote letters home to their mothers or to their wives. The second thing, To this day, he said, I can never close my eyes without smelling the bodies. Never. Then he went silent, lured back into the privacy of a world that would forever be buried within and taken to his grave. After he died, we found his Master Sergeant stripes, some medals, discharge papers that affirmed that he was responsible for an entire unit of medics, and a pad in which he noted the every once in a while date, along with the briefest of observations like too much blood, Perugia, Purple Heart Valley, too much death, madness, there are no words. And on the day the Germans surrendered, just these 3 words, oh, happy day. As he moved further and further away from his 3 years as a frontline medic, he did inevitably grow gentler and gentler on a journey back to who he was. But it took him a long time to come all the way home and to reclaim those precious pieces of himself that had died over there. For 3 years of war and 11 invasions forged one tough taskmaster of a father early on. I came to powerfully love the man, but hell, he was not easy when life was new. Now as to my sweet brother Bobby, who, while it feels like only yesterday, was lost to cancer more than 12 years ago, he was a year older than I. And at the tender ages of maybe 8 and 9, we got into a battle of sorts, I know not why, in our humble 138 Poplar Avenue Hackensack attic. In a sad moment that I am not proud of, I picked up a shoe and I fired it right at his head. He ducked. It flew on, broke a window, and to add insult to injury, landed precariously close to my dad, who was certainly in the wrong place at the wrong time in our backyard. The moment the shoe struck that glass, knowing what I was likely in for, and looking as if he was about to get sick, Bobby, in near panic, cried out to me, "I didn't mean to duck, Rich." Again and again, "I didn't mean to duck. I didn't mean to duck." To the one who had the temerity to throw the offending shoe directly at his head in the first place. His "don't duck" morphed into a life's takeaway, as it was Bobby who would go on to teach me how to put fear aside, how to face the bullies or the punks who ravaged our neighborhoods. For once upon a time, Peter Juliana and his misanthropes took aim at me as I delivered the Bergen Record newspaper, scaring me mightily. I asked for Bobby's help, and when he did so, and now understand, I could go toe-to-toe with Bobby at home. I wasn't scared of Bobby at all. But when he acted on my behalf, it was like something out of a movie. Only he didn't wear a mask or a cowboy hat or ride in on a horse or have to use a single punch. He just went right at Juliana with fire in his eyes, and without even touching him, reduced him into a shriveling Lilliputian of a being in a matter of moments. By sheer force of will, Bobby did this, and would later tell me these 3 things. Fear is an illusion. 2, the bullies are the ultimate cowards. And 3, while expressing it in very different format, that strength cometh from truth and the right and the good. And so the mantra, Bob's mantra, don't duck. And yes, don't duck took on much deeper meaning. Take the hits. Face it. Go forward. Be honorable. Stand up. Don't ever hide or run. Be fearless. Say yes when challenged. Keep the faith always. Own up to your own mistakes. And don't you ever let anyone else take the fault or the hit for you. My dad's courage and devotion, and Bobby's don't duck, mysteriously and practically came to live in me. And so too the drive to serve, inspired by them and oh so many in my life. I have tried to honor them all, but understand, and this is life. I tried, but I did not try hard enough. I gave, but I did not give enough. My enoughs never quite felt like enough, most certainly paling when juxtaposed to my dad's. I actually came to a place on the wings of the Neisseria meningitis that took me down, when life was to suddenly be forever challenged by disability, where I asked God to forgive me for failing and not fulfilling promises made to my wife and my children, and not doing enough with the opportunity I was given with which to make a difference. Yes, I failed because I did not do enough. So to our serve, give your life away, and don't duck, I had determined to do enough. For it is only in the giving, my friends, that life is fulfilled and sanctified. We all have our stories and our roots that run deep, and somehow still living within us are the sufferings and sadness, the heroism, love and joy of those who both gave and continue to give us life. All of them, friends and family. Bobby was singled out here, but all 6 of my siblings have stories that live in me. And oh, the extraordinary grace of my Maggie, my one and only. And all of our children and grandchildren and extended family and friends, all marvels and miracles who shaped and enriched. And while I know many are not so fortunate as I trust and hope that such may have been your experience as well. And so, to close this out, as Charlie Brown insists, be of good cheer. Don't duck. Be enough. And then determine to be even more. Like Thoreau, suck the marrow out of life. And like Tennyson's Ulysses, live it to the lees. And out of the complexity and mystery of it all, pause every once in a while, as Leonard Bernstein suggested, to sing God a simple song. For God is the simplest of all. Thank you, my friends. It's always great to be with you. I appreciate it, and I'll see you soon enough. Take care and have a great week.